Hey Jay, Happy New Year.
Yo, yeah, Melba, how you doing?
I'm doing relatively okay. My allergies are acting up today,
Mm.
so I am going to sound a little raspy, as you can see or hear, I should say. Um, Hopefully you enjoyed your break.
It was all right, just all right.
Yeah. When did you come back? Was it the first week or was it this week?
No, it was the first week.
First week.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, in truth, I'm like running to get back because I don't handle the devil's playground with me. I don't I tend to get pretty bored.
That- I think two peas in a pod. If I don't keep my mind occupied with something challenging, I get bored. Um,
Yeah.
that's probably my resume reflects that. I'm always trying something new. Um, uh, because I just, once I'm like, okay, this is nothing. I'm like, okay, give me something else that's more challenging or something I've never done before.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
No, my resume looks the same.
yeah, I'm hoping other folks join. We did have a good discussion last week about the conference, and several folks, it wasn't several, it was like two or three people were on the call. Um, I think one joined late. I forget his name.
You said
Uh,
last week?
yeah, so it wasn't on the calendar. It was on my calendar.
That's what I was gonna say. I don't remember there being
Yeah.
on the calendar last week.
Yeah, I don't know. What happened was the half of the meetings disappeared
Mhm.
for this year, and the other half stayed.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. And I've since fixed that. And so I apologized in the Slack channel. I'm like, hey, sorry, it wasn't on the calendar. I didn't realize, but it was on my internal calendar, which is why
Mm.
I started it up. And there was a couple of other people that had the same thing where they had it on their internal calendar, or they figured it was probably happening and just not on the calendar. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for joining.
Hi, how
Okay,
are you?
Yeah,
Happy
it
New
wasn't on
Year.
my internal calendar, which is surprising.
Happy New Year. Okay, let me get you all. Hopefully other folks kind of trickle in because there's lots to talk about. If you can sign.
I normally don't attend the positioning meetings, but I'm trying to ramp back up with salsa on the other side. And all those meetings are conflicting. So I'm like, I got to jump in something.
Yeah. Yeah, we may change the time of this meeting because the group that has been consistently coming
Yeah.
is not the same as those that said that they would come. So, and we also would like to be a little bit more, UK, potentially even India, China, Japan friendly, if it's earlier in the day, so that
Yeah.
they can attend.
Yeah,
Um,
that's tough. I think one of the meetings, the, the tooling meeting or the specification meeting is at a really bad time for me. So it's like, but that's the meeting I need to attend. So I'll get there.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
have to.
actually,
Stuff.
it's pretty funny because this past Monday, I had put stuff on the agenda for the specification meeting to talk
I saw
about.
that. Yeah.
And then my manager put something over that time slot for like the priorities for 2023 and things like that. And I'm like, that's the worst slot. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't attend. You're gonna have to record.
Yeah,
So I missed that meeting for salsa meeting because I was like, I can't. I'm on the agenda.
I know. That
uh,
keeps happening to me. And so I've just gotta, because Emmy wants me back on the salsa. So I'm gonna have to like start telling people, no, you can't. I can't take that time block. I need that time block. So we'll get, it'll work out. New year.
okay, so I think, hi Bruno, thanks for joining. And I'm trying to get my windows organized here so I don't have to like look all the way over there to see everybody and get my chat. If you can sign in, that would be nice. For folks that just joined, it's cedar fever season here, so my allergies are acting up. So if you see me disappear, I'm probably, dealing with my nose because this is the time of year that sucks to be in
Yeah.
Austin. Okay. So I know Jay and Kathy, you were not here last week. Again, it's okay because it wasn't on the calendar, and it was just an accident, right? That it wasn't on the calendar. But what we did was we said, okay, we know 2023, we have buy-in from many different people that we're going to start aligning, prioritizing, same vision together, right? And one of the things that came up was conferences, right? How do we make sure that we are, as a group, presenting or have representation in these conferences? And so what we did the last session is we kind of did a high-level brainstorming of what could we do, not only as a positioning group, but potentially even with the other groups saying, okay, you as a SLSA specification SIG, you should talk about the 1.0 update in detail, right? So that's not something we would do, but that's something that Josh and Mark potentially do. So we were thinking of more than just our group, but across SLSA to figure out what could we submit. And we came up with this timeline to say, okay, we'll have a first draft of all of these talks by the 24th. We'll all review by the 31st, or first draft 24th. We need to review that draft by the 31st because submission will be on Friday the 3rd, because I think it's due the 5th. So the timeline is coming up real quick for those submissions. It's a lot shorter this time around than last year. And so what I've done here is I've started to break out some of the ones. I didn't do the roadmap update because obviously we don't have the right people on this call. Thank you for joining, Michelle. Feel free to sign in. Where's the chat? I don't know where the chat is. I've lost the chat. If someone can, oh wait, I found it. Yes, there you go. So my goal for today is to try to say, okay, what do we think we would talk about in terms of like an abstract at a high level? We did some of that brainstorming last week, but I think if we can start writing down some words for each of these, I think it would go a long way. So thoughts, folks on the call?
Good.
Sounds good. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I think it's a great idea, for a salsa for beginners, and of course, talk about the levels. What is it? What are the levels? What are the levels addressing, basically?
Yeah. So let
Basic
me.
recommendations.
Details.
Which conferences are we eyeing for the year?
So we don't have a roadmap for all conferences because we haven't had that alignment for the supply chain integrity, right? And then across SLSA just in general. But this one is the Open Source Summit North America, which is in Vancouver. So that time we're like, okay, we know this is a big one. Typically OpenSSF is there. There's a supply chain security con there. So this one, I suspect we would want to participate in. And for the other ones, I'm not sure, right? We would have to have that discussion with the supply chain integrity working group to say, okay, what do you think we should prioritize, right? We can't do everything necessarily, but what do you think as a group we can do? People can submit their own talks if they want, but as a group, as leads, as maintainers or participants, what could we provide for this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for this one, we talked about this last time. We talked about the business problem, like, you know, why would someone care, right? Because if you don't tell them the why, you're pretty much going to lose them. The 1.0 launch right now, it's 10. The RFC is going to be beginning of February, and then they're thinking of wrapping up by March 1st. That's the goal right now. So it should be well out there if we stick to this timeline for 1.0 launching. So, and then, you know, having potentially a roadmap, if we coordinate with the supply chain integrity working group, with SLSA, obviously the SIG leads, as well as the TAC, then we can show people a roadmap to say, this is what we plan on doing for the year. You know, come join us, right, and help us. So
have they determined like what 1.0 is rolling out? Like which one is it? I mean, is it the provenance? Is it the build? Is it the like? Have they determined that?
Yeah, it's supposed to be build level 1, 2, and they want to target for 3 as well. So that's what they're trying to go for by March 1st.
Okay.
There is a PR currently for let me see, I think it's pool 5555. Can't remember. There's a like 525 maybe PR request that talks specifically about provenance. I have not had a chance to read that PR, but I did ask the question about, is this specific to only build? Because there's a provenance of build
they pulled
components.
provenance out. They pulled provenance out completely and made it its own thing. Now, I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if that was just to work on it and then maybe put it back in. But I do know that provenance version 1.0 initial draft, they pulled provenance out. And I think that had something to do with what we brought to them a couple of months ago.
Yeah, and so that's what I was asking for clarification, because I did hear that they pulled it out. And so, you know, this morning I was like, well, if I were to read this with my own bias, I assume that this is for the build environment only, right? What are the packages that make up the build environment, and not the application or the package that which you are building. Right. But I've not gotten a response because that was this morning. So I need to go through it. But I'm not 100% sure like what in 1.0 is officially launching. There is that proposal, and yesterday they said what they wanted to do was meet that proposal, at least the majority of what they set out to do. But there's going to be a review. So I don't know if everything is going to be on that checkbox or not. So this is provenance. Okay. So what do we think? Oh, I think for me. Oh, I see. RSA Security Conference. That's in March, isn't it?
March or April. I couldn't remember when it was this year.
It's in April, and
Okay.
we may have already missed the CFP. I mean, that would have been a great place to actually talk about SLSA, because the audience. Here's the problem that I perceive that's happened with the direction SLSA is going, which is great. I mean, it's focused very heavily on developers and implementers, but not on CISOs really. And CISOs hear supply chain security and they go and they run around and they go, let's buy us some of that. And like that's not what this is. This is process, right? And with some tooling that maybe understands it. And there's a captive audience at RSA, right, of CISOs and security directors and things like that. And the opportunity is there to help them talk to and learn how to talk to developers, right? There are other conferences like this, so we probably want to try to target them. If there are B-sides events local to you, those community backyard events are great. I have, just FYI, recommended, I've been working internally with the event coordinator in Google Cloud for RSA Security Conference, and explained, I said, look, we need to not just talk about Chronicle and and Mandiant, that's great, but we also need to talk about SLSA, MVSP, and DORA, and SLSA's right at the top of the list, right? So any content that we have that could be on a, like talking points or associated blog post, I mean, that we can help push there, I'm willing to make that happen in our booth.
Yeah, so I'm going to put this here, and then I'm going to put this comment from you, because by then, in theory, we would have, what's different, right? And have that personification of this is why you care. That's actually another reason why we said we think a month worth of time will give the tooling group and our group enough time to create blogs, to create the tooling required for 1.0. And if we can't meet the March 1st, we would just extend the RFC deadline so that we can get up to speed for the 1.0 launch. So we want to be in lockstep for all the different SLSA groups, us and the tooling, to make sure everything is in order. So we should, in theory, have it by RSA, even publish maybe a blog. It's definitely going to be on the website, etc. So,
by the way, there's more than one RSA. There's RSA also in Europe, and there's AppSec US, but there's also other AppSec events that we could target. I mean, they're all over the world, B-sides all over the place. So that's what I would recommend. That was what I had on my content plan, is RSA, B-sides, and any OWASP event.
definitely. Oh yeah, I forgot about OWASP. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, we'll have to talk about that. That was an item that got brought up at the end of last year, like which conferences do we want to target? But unless we know our vision as supply chain integrity, we can't even begin to plan that. So we need to see what we're trying to aim for, and then based off that, we'll decide which conferences we should be attending. That's not to say that people can't submit their own talks, but as like I said, leads or maintainers, etc., trying to submit something for us, not as a IBM person, as an example. I'm an IBM. I'm not going to talk about the IBM story. I'm going to talk about my contributions and collaboration with the open source that has nothing to do with IBM, right? Okay. Any other questions? And thank you for that, Michelle. Okay, so what do we think a good title or abstract for SLSA for beginners would be? I'm not a good wordsmith, so just trying to think.
Can have something simple like a SLSA overview, or something more funny like the good and bad and ugly, whatever.
Bad and ugly about SLSA. I don't think SLSA SIG leads are gonna like the ugly part, but that's okay, right? Because we're showing we're not perfect, but we're trying to improve. So how do we make sure, other than, because I know they'll identify beginner, it goes with also it goes with all your apps. Also the AppSec condiment. Oh, nice. Okay. And feel free to type in here. I don't have to be the only one typing, by the way.
Okay.
So if you have an idea, feel free to add them. How do we, other than the level, usually every talk has a level designated like beginner, intermediate, advanced. How do we express that in the title? Because sometimes that's your first impression and the people aren't going to read the description. So how do we make sure that we do attract the right audience? And I have also you're really good at the catchy. I like that. I feel like that would win. I honestly think that would win. And that's not to say that we can't, you know, this one might be the good, bad, and ugly, might be a good one for the panel discussion,
Oh yeah.
right? Because it's not just, all rosy. There's gonna be challenges
Yep.
and you're there to talk about it.
Agree.
Does everybody else agree? Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna take it out of the beginners one. It's also the AppSec condiment, and it goes with all your apps. I'm trying to think. If salsa is the AppSec condiment, what would Fresca and S2C2F be? Would they be the bread and the cheese? I'm like trying to figure that out. Right? This is like a sandwich of some sort, right? So I feel like a sandwich joke would be appropriate in the title. But I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm jumping around. Sandwich ish channel, or maybe like a guac. We can't do guac because guac is something else, like guacamole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's salsa, not salsa.
Do you remember the Seinfeld episode?
Mm-mm.
Oh, they go on and on about salsa versus seltzer, and yeah, okay.
It's okay. Let's see. What else? It goes with all your apps. I'm trying to think. Panel, and then the hands-on demo. AppSec dance. Salsa, the AppSec dance. Salsa, it's AppSec, not a dance. Oh, wait, you changed your mind? You wrote salsa, the AppSec dance, and then you. I'm guessing that's you, Michelle, typing, right?
Yeah, that's me. I can't help myself. Sorry.
Yeah, no. But by all means, because it says anonymous, so I don't know who's typing. But clearly you have a knack for this. So I'm gonna let you do your thing. I think for the content, the only thing about the content that we care about for the abstract is making sure that we cover high enough level statement that we could add extra things in there if we need to, as an example, right? So right now we're just talking about the business problem and why do I care? And roadmap, right? We can talk about compliance and how it fits in, right? We can talk about the EO if we wanted to. We can talk about so many things for the beginner, but we need to somehow generalize what we're going to say so that we don't pigeonhole ourselves into only these topics, if that makes any sense. Ketchup, mustard, man, and relish. Hey, Jay, do you agree with that? Ketchup,
Not
mustard, and relish?
necessarily, I'm just throwing, I'm throwing darts at the dartboard here. I'm not.
Yeah. No, I'm just like, I'm making fun because actually it should be S2C2F and then salsa and then fresca, right?
Yeah, I'm throwing darts at
Um,
the dartboard here. I feel like we play on word. I don't know. If it were me, these are titles enough. Like I just
These are titles.
like I think salsa for beginners is a great title. I just
Nah,
is that too dry though? I don't know.
we can mention it in the description. I mean, we could say salsa for beginners, right? And maybe,
It's not as catchy, of course. I
yes,
mean, it's
correct.
a bit dry, but
Yeah, so I
Okay.
know that, go ahead.
Yeah,
Or
you're
you
not
can
going to
put
get.
it like a salsa introductions or elementary salsa. Things
I
that
would
use
make
it
it
to
a,
have.
so when you're doing CFPs, I think you got to grab them at the beginning, and you could have a subtitle. So if you have the catchy one, like, chips and salsa for beginner supply chain security or something, like have the catchy thing at the
Yeah.
beginning, hook them, and then have the description like the subtitle.
Yeah, so you mean like this, right? If I do this, like it would have like colon and then salsa for beginners. Is that what you're talking about? Oh, you're on mute. We can't
Yeah.
hear you, Michelle.
It's an introduction to protecting your supply chain, something like that, or supply
Yeah.
chain security, like a model for supply chain security, something like that, right? Like interesting, get them hooked, boring description.
Got it. So definitely in the abstract, we can talk about, salsa for beginners, right? Like it's intended for beginners or folks that want to get acquainted with salsa, right? Because what we don't want to like the more advanced people joining and then giving really bad ratings for the talk because they were expecting something more, right? You want to set the right level of expectations for your audience. So you said something. Can you repeat what you know what? I'm not even going to make you repeat. I'm just going to go over the recording later. Because you said something, Michelle, that I thought when you said it, I was like, oh, that's really good to put into an abstract. But I don't quite remember everything. I just remember supply chain security and that's it. But I do remember you saying
Yeah,
something.
remember, nobody's going to know what the hell salsa is, right? And that's the point. Like, so you want to say, like, you have the model name, right? You have salsa, and you say pick one of those, and then you say something about it's about the basics of supply chain security, right? And then they're going to be intrigued, right? So you're saying, oh, it's not spelled like salsa. What does that mean? That sounds interesting, right? So you want to tell them what salsa is, right? Kind of in the title, which is, oh, it's about supply chain, because they're not going to they've never heard of, like a lot of people haven't heard of SLSA, right? And especially if you focus on, like I put here, so let's say you go to B-Sides, or you go to you do it at RSA Security Conference. Okay, those aren't developer conferences, right? But you want crossover. So you want to talk to a GRC person, a governance risk and compliance assessor. They don't, how many of them understand pipelines? Probably 3.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
But they do understand supply chain security. So they'll go, oh, yeah, my boss was talking about that.
NIST reference. We can also talk about the NIST reference as NIST, SSDF.
That's the point. Yeah, they have their own. Yeah.
Well, they reference salsa in some
Yeah.
of their recommendations. So, right. So this is the other why, that right, that it's becoming more and more, I don't want to say a standard necessarily, but more
No, it
prevalent.
will. So the second FYI, so having been worked on security teams and been a security architect, I will tell you when they see NIST, that's like you almost want to put that very close to the top because
Mhm.
that answers the regulatory question and like anytime you a CISO sees that, oh, there's a NIST standard, then
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It
I mean, all mine.
definitely.
I'm sorry, but that's just
No, no,
how.
no. I think it's good feedback. But I do think we need to call that. We also have a blog about it. We planned on having other blogs about other references, but we never figured out the OSCAL thing. So we kind of put a stop to that. It was too much manual work.
Well, the
Um,
problem is no one could figure out the OSCAL thing. Hell, when we tried to get people who were too supposedly like new OSCAL to comment about OSCAL, they
Yeah.
couldn't comment about the OSCAL thing.
Yeah.
That was desperate. I mean, and understand, I'm still reading up on this, and I still have yet to really fully understand what exactly is OSCAL ultimately going to be used for.
Automation.
Well, yeah, automation, but automation with that results in what?
Yeah, I can tell you some of those like assessment language formats, like vendors might end up using it, but I don't know. Like I've never had an OSCAL conversation in an enterprise. I can tell you that. I have never. I actually had to look it up, and I remembered what you were like the format and everything.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've never had that conversation in an enterprise. I can tell you.
It's
Yeah.
pretty rugged.
Yeah.
It mind splitting.
Yeah. I think it's possible in an enterprise, and this is just my theory here. The reason why OSCAL hasn't been talked to enough, because I think NIST does use OSCAL, if I'm not mistaken. But I think in enterprise, they're doing things so manually, and they're used to doing things so manually that they're not thinking about how do we scale this so that we don't have to waste time cross-checking all of these, controls. Does this meet that control? That's what OSCAL is intended to do, is you map the controls and you can map that control to some other reference framework or whatnot.
I don't think that's it. I mean, every place I've worked over the last 5 years, they are trying to automate, like Capital One, for example, tries to correlate and automate a lot of this.
Mhm.
We never talked about OSCAL. I mean, maybe somebody brought it up, but I think you're more likely, in my experience, like it's sort of like the serif format, you're more likely to have that conversation with a vendor. It's just my impression having worked on the enterprise side.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, everything I read about OSCAL is about taking different formats, bringing them centralized into one tool that can read all these formats, and it's however you put the controls in respective formats. It's supposed to take that, read all these formats, read all these controls, and then spit back something that you're supposed to be able to take and be able to use in an audit environment to verify whether or not you're meeting a set of controls based on inputs from other areas that may have to input using different formats.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
one area will input, will have inputs that are in one format. Another area will have inputs in another format, and it's supposed to produce something when you're for the purposes of auditing, so that you don't have to, so that one person doesn't have to go to all these different places. All these different places can feed into one tool with their different formats, and it's supposed to regurgitate or it's supposed to spit out something that's readable, that says, hey, based on all of these inputs from all of these different formats, this is one universal language now that can tell you how you're doing.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
that's
no
adorable.
one
But a lot of these places are using Archer, for example. Have you ever used
Oh
Archer?
God, please, for the love of God.
I have.
Every time I hear
Yeah.
the word Archer, my back, you ever see a cat like with the tears that raises up on them? Every time I hear Archer, it's like, ah!
Yeah, I mean, IRM is like, I was having this conversation earlier internally, and IRM is like everybody talking, the single pane of glass, IRM, centralized dashboard, automating all these. It's just so, most places are so far away because most of it is just a jumble of trying to get these tools to plug into each other. I mean, maybe I don't mean to sound like a negative Nelly, but having lived it in banking,
That's fair.
I just think the tool hasn't been built yet that can
No.
produce
No.
the report or whatever it is that needs to be produced that uses all the information. I think that I'm not saying that it's not good. I'm just saying that everyone I've spoken to, everyone I've reached out to about it, they all, it's like there's no ending to the story. There's
Yeah.
just additional questions. There's no.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are plenty of those out there by NIST, right? It's not like they haven't done that before.
Okay, I'm gonna reset. We went on an Oscar tangent. I'm sorry about that. Because I said we haven't been able to do that. So let's go back to conference, back to catchy titles and abstracts and whatnot. Okay, so I think we'll have to do some work on the beginners. I think it'd be good to try to come up with some other ones for the three that are left. So the good, bad, and ugly about salsa, I think, is a really good one. I don't know if you have any other ideas on this catchy title. Right now, we know Red Hat can be a panelist. They have a claim for version .1 of salsa. I think is it level 3, Laura? Is that right?
So what was the question?
For Red Hat, I thought pushed out an announcement for level 3 salsa compliance, but that was for draft version .1.
I haven't seen that, but I can
I think
let you know.
it happened in like October-ish, November, around there somewhere. I remember Emmy mentioning it. So Aaron from Verizon, I know he's done several about his journey in salsa. I have not yet asked anybody internally. For folks on this call, would there be anybody from your organizations or organizations that you know have done kind of that we've done salsa demo to the broader community that maybe we could reach out to? Because it'd be good to have different perspectives, right? Verizon's a telecom, right? Red Hat is pure open source software. So it'd be good to have different industries / sectors participating so that there is a diverse point of view.
Yeah, Melba, I think you're right about Red Hat and version .1.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I guess the focus on levels 3 and hell, I'm looking at something here that says level 3 and level 4, but I think it was just level 3 that was the focus.
Yeah, and I forget what Aaron got to. I want to say he got to level 3, but I'm not 100% sure. What level did you get to? Was it level 3? So yeah, we should probably record that. So Jay, do you know, as an example, Microsoft, right? I know at IBM we're doing something, but I think it's mostly internal. I don't think we have an official product that's been announced. I'd have to go double check. So does Microsoft have anything? I know, Bruno, you were going to check for on your end.
Yeah, that it's still touch and go as far as Salsa is concerned inside of Microsoft. I know that there's been talk about a few. There's been talk actually, Salsa, Fresca, Guac. There's been a lot of talk about all of these internally, but I think it's still touch and go with Salsa, mainly because there hasn't been a nail down yet of where Salsa is going to land version 1.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
There hasn't, and that you can't, unfortunately, you can't hang.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Can't hang stuff on a maybe. I mean, I'd really like to. Hell, I'm following the GitHub site. I'm following all the conversations because I'd really like to know too, for the purposes of what we're attempting to do, where we're going to fall at a version 1, because a large part of how we're trying to help position relies on that, So yeah, that's where it's from a Microsoft standpoint. We're trying to figure that part out.
Okay. Michelle, Bruno.
You want to know what Google's doing in terms of
Well,
Salsa?
I know that Google has plenty of videos that say that they are level 3, even potentially even level 4.
I'm looking at the slide. I actually looked it up while you were talking. So Google Cloud Build says level 2, GitHub Action. Google Cloud Build level 2. There's a Salsa verifier in Go.
I think there was a VP.
Sorry.
I think there was like an executive that did a presentation late last year that said that Salsa or Google was level 3 compliant.
I don't.
Well, I vaguely remember.
Yeah,
the level 3, but that was like more towards the
Internal.
fall. And then like there was
No.
level 2 after the change. After the changeover and decision to not have the level 4, and then the breakup between build and source, then it was like level 2, right? And then it went down to level 2 based on the changes. I mean, but that's the kind of stuff that we're.
Yeah, and it also depends if you're talking about, like with Google, if you're talking about cloud, if you're talking about, what we offer, and then, or you're talking about what we do internally, right?
It's just a person, right? It's not about necessarily products. It's about a person/team's journey in Salsa, right? I think Aaron is doing all of.
I thought you wanted to know what we offered. Okay, sorry.
No. I just know that I've seen plenty of demos or videos that claim level 3, and so we could certainly if there is a person, I think this is valuable perspective. If there is a person that can talk to, we used to, for version 1, we used to be level 3, but because of version 1.0, now we are, level, 2 for build, etc. Right? That is an interesting story because there are plenty of people that have gone down this version 0.1 journey. And so they need to be aware that just because you were level 3 or level 4 before doesn't mean you're going to be that come time when you revisit version 1.0. So I think that's a really, really valuable perspective if we can find a person that can speak to that at Google. So do you know, Michelle, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Big deal. I mean, if you want, they talk a lot about Salsa internally, like a lot. So it's very, we probably did talk about it at Next because we have products that we link to Salsa
Yeah.
you know, to say, hey, we're like, so we have that, but we also have discussions like about our product side where we're implementing salsa ourselves, right? You see, so I mean, I can have both, I can get both conversations.
I would just want one person to talk about their initial to 1.0 journey, because 1.0 has been
Product,
Right.
like not for.
it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't
Oh,
matter.
okay.
Yeah, 'cause-
Okay.
yeah, Aaron, I think Red Hat is product. Aaron is internal, right? So Google, it doesn't matter if it's product or internal. It'd be
Okay.
good to have a fourth panelist. Us blog about salsa. Where can I put that? Focusing. Okay, I'll add that. Thank you, Laura. Da, 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 da. And I did get confirmation from Aaron. It was level 2 because of a constraint on GitLab side. If I understand, GL is GitLab. So that's something that's good to talk about, right? It's like, well, I can't get past this because we're using XYZ, and that tool can't do, this requirement of salsa. Okay. How much time do we? Okay, we have less than 15 minutes left. So I think this would be an easy one. It's just more about the abstract will have something about, experiences from organizations, their adoption journey. Right. I'm just generalizing that. Okay. Hands-on demo.
Do you know about Innovation Sandbox and Launchpad at RSA?
I can't repeat that. Sorry.
There's something called Innovation Sandbox and Launchpad at RSA Security Conference, and that's that environment is explicitly for the purpose. Like I remember once I saw a bunch of TPM presentations at Innovation Sandbox, and that might be I don't know if they do open source things, but it's worth maybe taking a look at. But
yeah, I've not heard of it. I think when we talked about this last week, right, we were hoping that it would be more interactive, that it's not necessarily a website that you go to do this, but that could be an option for those that don't have a laptop. So that's a good point, maybe for those without laptops / dev tools, right? Because there's going to be a bunch of different people. So we talked about, a lot of people, especially, people that want to implement salsa, they need to understand how, or like an example. So we would have some sort of sample repo that they can pull from, and then show how they can get to salsa level 1 and a 2 in a demo, and then only talk to 3 and 4, since it's not, well, 3 would be more complicated, so we probably wouldn't set up a lab for that. And 4 would not be defined by the time the conference comes. So that was our general thinking last week. Thoughts from the broader team that was not there? Me and Bruno were the only ones there from this meeting. So no. And then I think for this we may need tooling groups, help / tools, right? I suspect that they have something up their sleeve, right? And I'm not sure if it's them that would be doing this, right? But this is kind of like a beginner way of looking at it. Maybe there's also an advanced version of the demo.
And how to integrate with Oscar, right?
With Oscar?
Oscar.
Oh, Oscar. Oh, no. Yeah, no. Now, I will say that Mike Lieberman was the one that recommended Oskau. So he's the reason why we were going down that rabbit hole.
Yep.
And he is part of tooling. So if he does integrate it, fantastic. He is familiar with it, and he's the one that recommended it at the beginning. So what do we think about title or an abstract? Thoughts on trying to think of a way to say, like, like when you get your hands dirty with, like, either chip salt or like maybe salsa, you might lick your fingers, but I'm like, I don't know if I can figure out a way of putting that into a title.
We cannot.
I
put
like
word
the
lick.
dance
Yes,
reference.
I know.
And
Go ahead.
I said I like
Sorry.
Michelle's dance reference to the
Oh,
salsa
yeah,
dance.
yeah.
What do you call a salsa? Like, in tango, you have the milonga, which is a group dance event. You show up and you can dance with anybody. Do they have that in salsa?
Oh, yes. So salsa the dance, it's called rueda in Spanish. It's when you dance in a circle and you switch partners constantly, and you're at the mercy of the person in the middle doing hand signals to tell
too
you what the
obscure?
next move. Huh?
Is that too obscure? I mean,
Yeah.
but it would work, it
That
aligns
usually
with the
happens
metaphor.
at like birthday parties and stuff like that. You get the person in the middle, and then everybody shuffles on through.
Yep. Yeah.
Dances
So
and all
it's
that.
yeah. I'll put a comment on it. It's called rueda. But this is Spanish for like wheel. I'm not sure if we want to use that. But yeah, maybe the dancing. Where'd it go? I think it was in the chat. You wrote salsa. Oh, where'd it go? I can't find it in the chat now. Salsa, the APSEC dance. It's not quite
Salsa,
there.
salsa, it's APSEC, not a dance or something. I think I wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah, salsa, it's APSEC, not a dance.
Yeah. Yeah, this one's
What was the name
I
of that horrible salsa film? There was a movie.
Dirty Dancing?
No, there's a salsa, there's a really bad salsa movie. And like it has like a really stupid title that you could riff off of because it's shit.
Okay, I don't
Salsa,
know.
Dance of APSEC. I don't know.
Yeah, because Dirty Dancing, they do salsa, but I'm like, that's not appropriate for the conference at all. And I think, Laura, you just shared some slides. I don't think we'll have time to cover them. If you can put a link and we can cover it next time, I think that would be helpful. I think I saw a notice on my phone that it came in.
Yeah, it's just as promised. But I had a overview, a salsa overview that I did in May for internal to Red Hat, and I scrubbed it of the branding and left kind of just the basics so that we wouldn't have to start from scratch. And then I just added a roadmap, a blank roadmap slide to the end. I'll continue to working on it, but I wanted to at least provide it to you.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, if you, well, I have the link now, so I can always add it later. Salsa, yeah, we'll have to think about this salsa hands-on demo, and obviously we can do this offline as well, right? If you come up with something, put it here. If you think of a really good abstract, put it here. There's no reason, again, that one person has to do it or that we even have to meet. I think now that everybody gets the gist of what we're doing, it's easy to collaborate and do it offline. So I think we do have to work on the hands-on demo title. The S2C2F Salsa Fresca, that's part of the supply chain integrity working group conversation, Jay, that we've been having, right, with Isaac. So I like the ketchup, mustard, and relish, but I don't know if that's truly synonymous or we don't really care. We'll just call it that.
Yeah, I
But it's funny.
It
It's
is.
cute.
I don't know that it's synonymous either. Like I said, shrug the shoulders. I think
Okay.
as Michelle said earlier, it's catchy. Okay, it catches your eye.
Yes.
What's
Yep.
that? You know,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you can put whatever you want to put behind it.
Yeah. So I do like the title. So it really sounds like we need to vote on the beginners one and then talk about this one. I think I like Salsa with Us. You know, the dance of AppSec. Oh, what if it's Salsa with Us? Oh, I see what you did. Is this the caption or subtitle? Is that what this is, Michelle?
Sorry, wait, let me see what you're pointing at. Oh, no, that was another option. Where I put salsa, the dance of AppSec, you know, colon
Got
the
it.
dance. I'm just like throwing out ideas so that you can, you know.
So we could say Salsa with Us, colon, the dance of AppSec. Right? I don't know. Here, why don't I do this? Salsa with Us.
I just put in the document that B-Side San Francisco, which is traditionally either the weekend before or the weekend after RSA, the CFP is still open. So anybody who, that's an amazing opportunity right there. I threw in the link to the event.
Oh, thank you. Let me find it. Oh wait, you put it in the doc?
Yeah, I put it, where did I just
Oh,
put
I
it?
see it. I see it. I see it now. Okay.
Oh, it
Thank
just,
you.
yeah, it's for B-Sides SF. So it's bsidessf.org.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I feel like the B-sides here in Austin typically is in the fall. At least that was when I remember it being, so I'd have to check.
No, the San Francisco one, if you can't, it's too late for the main conference, you know, for RSA, but there's, you know, cross pollination between, like the same with, you know, when you go to, typically when you go to Black Hat, that's why they call it security summer camp, because you're going to go to Black Hat. You're gonna go to
DEF CON
B-Side,
is usually
you're
right
gonna go to
after that. Some of that.
and then you're going to hit all the parties, right?
Yeah. Okay. So two things that we haven't talked about, but I need to go figure out who to talk to, and I don't know if anybody on this call knows. I need to, or somebody needs to talk to whoever is managing the conference, if there's going to be an expert lounge, and if yes, how do we sign up? And two, is there going to be an OpenSSF day? Because if there's an expert lounge, that's the, you know, come talk to us ad hoc, and we can have volunteers to be there to talk about salsa throughout the day. But I don't know if there is going to be one or not, so I don't know who to even contact.
I can
For
ask
that.
David Wheeler or Crow about that.
Okay.
And about the OpenSSF day, I don't even know that that's been decided yet. I asked about that last week or the week before that, whether it's going to be an OpenSSF day, and I guess they're still trying to figure that part out. But I can ask David Wheeler or Crow, you know,
Okay.
where they're landing on any of that stuff.
Okay, yeah, that would be fantastic. because I was like, I don't even know where to begin with this. Because the expert lounge is great for, you know, whiteboarding or just ad hoc conversations and questions that people can't ask during the sessions or after the session. And then the OpenSSF day, if we had a presentation about salsa, then we would want to be included in the OpenSSF day. But I thank you, Laura, and I actually have to run too. Thank you, everybody. I think this is fantastic start. I think we're getting to our goal of the draft soon. And thank you, Michelle, for your really fun titles and catchy titles. Okay, IBM has a booth at RSA. Yeah, I'll have to talk to them because I have no
Red
idea.
Hat. I'm sure Red Hat does too. So yeah, if they wanted to really do community work, I mean, that's a good opportunity. Just saying.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Hope you enjoy your day. And again, feel free to work offline. Thanks. Bye.
Yep.